I want to tell you something that I don't really talk about in my videos, but before my agency Sime existed, I was a software engineer at companies like Apple, Twitter, and Cisco, and the resume looked great from the outside, right? Good companies, good salary, good career progression. That's the kind of career path that people tell you to go for when you study computer science. And I was miserable, right? Not in a dramatic way, so I was not burned out or like having a breakdown, but it was more like this slow and quiet thing where every single morning I would just sit down at my desk and think to myself that, okay, this is just gonna be another day of debugging other people's code. And that's fine, that's the job, but I had studied computer science because I wanted to build things, right? And somewhere along the way, building things became fixing things, and the two are not the same. And this video is about what happened when I decided to stop waiting for the right moment to actually build something on my own, and how that decision led to a 7-figure cold email agency, full story, the actual number, the things that did not work, and the things that finally did. So let's get into it. So I graduated with a computer science degree at UC Irvine and landed my first real job, making around $80,000 a year, which back in 2018 was pretty solid. Like right out of school, and I genuinely liked the idea of being a software engineer. I liked the problem solving part, I liked the technical challenge, but what I did not expect was how little of the job was actually building. Most of what you do at big companies, especially at junior engineers, just maintain existing systems. You're debugging code that somebody wrote 3 years ago, right? In the code base that had about like 400 contributors, and your job is to find the one single line that's causing an issue in production, right? It's important work, don't get me wrong, but it's not the same as building something from scratch. And that gap bothered me more than I expected it to. So I did what a lot of engineers do. I moved to a bigger company, thinking the work would be more interesting, and it was more technically complex, but the pattern was basically the same. At Apple, at Cisco, at Twitter, bigger problems, harder to debug, but still mostly maintaining and fixing, right? Still not building anything cool. And at this point, I had this honest conversation with myself about what I actually wanted. And the answer was pretty clear. I wanted to build something that was mine. I didn't know what it was going to be, but I knew it wasn't going to happen inside somebody else's company. So before Sime, I actually had a startup with a buddy of mine. I'm not going to go too much into the detail, but the short version of that is we built something, we're trying to grow it, and the way we grew it was through just cold email. And that was my first real exposure on what cold outbound actually looked like in practice. And I think what surprised me most was how direct it was. You identify who you want to talk to, you figure out what you want to say, you send it, and you see what happens, right? There's just literally no algorithm deciding whether your content gets seen. There's no 6 months runway before you know if it's actually working, right? You send an email, you get a reply, or you don't. And the data tells you exactly what the problem is. We eventually exited that startup, and it wasn't like a life-changing number of money, but it taught me a lot, right? Especially about how businesses actually get customers, which is something that most engineers, including myself, had almost no training in. So when I decided to start my agency, SciMate, I only knew 2 things. 1, I understood cold email better than most people who were trying to sell it. And 2, I had a background in software and automation that most agencies founders don't have. Those 2 things together felt like an actual edge, not just an idea. And here's the thing I always tell people about why SciMate exists, because we started as a cold email agency because of a very simple logic, right? If we ourselves can get clients using cold email, we have no business selling it to other people, right? You cannot coach, you cannot do something that you haven't proven yourself yet. So the plan was always to build a system for ourselves first, make it work for our own agency, and then use that same system for clients. And if I'm being honest, in the beginning it was less of a strategy and more of a necessity, right? We just needed clients. We didn't have a big network, we were not running ads. Quite frankly, we didn't have any money to run ads. We had no content. Cold email was the one channel where you can just literally start from zero, control who you're talking to, and get feedback fast. The first year was slow. And I want to be real about that because I think a lot of people watch videos like this and hear the 7-figure number and just kind of assume that the trajectory was clean, right? It wasn't. We were taking on projects for pretty much less than what it was worth just to build the skill, just to get the testimonial, just to get the case studies. We were literally iterating constantly. Like every single client that comes in, we're literally trying to change the copy every single day, trying to change the ICP, changing how we position the offer. Like we put a lot of effort moving forward just to get some kind of result for our clients. But here's what I didn't understand then that I actually understand now, but every iteration made us better. And because we were running these campaigns on our own business, we were getting real feedback in real time, like not theoretical feedback, not another case study from someone else's account, right? This is literally our own numbers, our own replies, our own rejections, and our own wins. And just kind of thinking about it, I think that's actually the thing that separates us from most agencies in the space. We didn't just learn cold email by just running it for our clients. We learn it by running it for ourselves first, hitting 7 figures on our own agency, and then packaging that same system for other companies. The system that actually builds SciMate is the product that we sell. You get what I'm saying? So let me give you the actual timeline because I think this part matters. When we first launched SciMates Outbound, we were starting small. We were sending only like 50 emails a day, which is, maybe 10 or 15 inboxes. We were talking B2B SaaS company, which made sense given my background, and my co-founder also was a software engineer, so it was a no-brainer. And our goal really wasn't to close any deals on the first call, right? Our goal was just to get the conversation started. In the first 60 days or so, believe it or not, we made some lead magnet and it was not that amazing. So we got a bunch of conversation, we got a bunch of interest, but no one actually showed up to meeting. No one actually booked for meeting with us. And from day 60 to maybe like the first 90 days, we booked maybe like a dozen meetings, right? 10 meetings within 30 days. Most of them showed up, right? A few actually became our first paying clients. And within our first 90 days, we actually hit our first 10K month in recurring revenue, right? This is without ads, no referrals, we didn't know anybody, and no content. It was literally just a cold email system that we had built and tested on our own business. And that number, 10K MRR in 90 days from just cold email alone, was the moment it clicked for me, because now we have proof, right? Not a theory about why this should work, but actual evidence that the system produces results. And once you have a proof of concept, everything just kind of changed. You stop second guessing the model and you start actually scaling the thing that works. And from there, we just kept going. More inboxes, more campaigns, more refinement on the strategy side of things. A year and a half of just literally head down and work later, we were 7 figures. And that's a real timeline. Now, I want to share something that I think generally one of the most useful things in this whole video. So in the last video, by the way, that video took me like 4 or 5 hours. So if you haven't checked it out, make sure to do so, because I literally walk you through how we actually build a cold email system from scratch. So just to kind of recap everything with cold email, there are 4 important pillars: infrastructure, data, copywriting, and operations, right? That's the build order. But there's a different question that comes up all the time. What do you do when a system is all built, your cold email is running, but it's not getting results? That's a different problem, and it needs a different lens. So let me draw this out. So again, from the last video, we got infrastructure, we got data, we got copywriting. Funny enough, back then when I was using my demo, I used to call this the IDC framework. So infrastructure, data, copywriting, and then operation. Now, this is the order of how you should set up a campaign, because when you create an infrastructure, you can just go with a service that can help you spin up secondary inboxes or domains within seconds. Data, there are tools, probably gonna take you like 1 or 2 days to build a lead list. Copywriting, that's the part that typically takes the most time for you to figure it out, right? And that's actually important, because when a campaign is not working, this is the order that I actually think it, right? So essentially, let's take that into another one. The first thing you have to think about is your offer, then positioning, then your copy, then your targeting, then your infrastructure at the bottom, right? Almost like a reverse of the 4 pillars that I was talking about in the previous video. And what I want to do is walk you through why it's in this order, the same way I would walk through a founder in like a consultation call. But if your infrastructure is not working, what would you actually do? Well, you probably check your domain, check your deliverability, and maybe see some of those inboxes are flagged, right? Okay, so you found the issue. What's next? You're not gonna fix it. You're just gonna buy new ones, right? So realistically, if something is wrong with your infrastructures, all you have to do is just buy new domains, right? And realistically, that probably take you about like 1 or 2 hours. So that's why infrastructure is typically sit at the bottom here, not because it's not important. It is actually very important, but in terms of what's likely to be killing your result, it's usually not this, and it is a very quick fix, right? You don't want to focus so much about, like infrastructure. If something doesn't work, just get new inboxes. Now, targeting is next. If your targeting is off, you're emailing people who don't actually have the problem that you actually solve, right? And that takes a little bit longer to fix. You've got to rebuild your ICP, you have to get a new data set. It's still fixable, but just takes a bit more than a day. Now, copywriting is where people spend most of their energy, right? And it does matter, but here's the thing. If your offer and your positioning are all dialing in, writing good copy is actually not that hard. I showed you a framework in the previous video, right? That kind of structure most of the work for you. Copy is just the execution layer. It's not usually the root cause, right? Positioning is where I see campaigns quietly die. And when I mean quietly, it's because the emails are landing, people are opening them, people are reading them, sometimes even replying, but nothing is actually converting. The reason is usually because the way you describe your problem is how the prospect see everyone else in the space, right? You don't know how to position your product correctly, right? Now, and you can make the same argument to yourself, right? We are a cold email agency, and how many other cold email agency out there, right? There's GTM agency, there's Grow agency, which is actually doing cold email too, right? But that's the reason why we're getting results, we're getting customers, and other people don't. And that's because we know how to position ourselves in the market. No amount of better copy can fix the mismatch in how we position ourselves and how the problem is actually framed. And offer actually sits at the top, right? And this is the one that nobody wants to talk about because it's the hardest thing to fix, right? Most people obsess on building the pipeline, getting the right tool, building this crazy fancy workflow. But if the market doesn't actually want what you're selling, or you can't explain why it matters in one sentence, none of this is gonna save you, right? You might have the perfect infrastructure, you might have the perfect targeting, perfect copy, and it still not work because the offer itself is not correct, right? So here's the whole picture. When something's broken and you don't know why, you start at the top, right? You start the offer, not at the bottom, right? And then you move on to positioning. Is the positioning match how the market actually talk about the problem? Are we positioning our product or our service correctly based on all of our competitors? So those two questions solve more than broken campaign than anything else, right? Way more often than people expect. And this is genuinely one of the first things we do with every client account that comes to us with a campaign that isn't converting, right? We look at the offer, we see how we can position themselves in a market that perhaps is saturated. That's how we're able to get literally incredible results for all of our customers. And again, you can check out our case studies and compare that to everyone else and you can tell me different. Right, so where are we now? So right now we're currently sending about 100,000 emails every single day across all clients' campaigns and for ourselves as well. Our internal campaign at SciMay typically books anywhere between 50 to 80 meetings every single month for our own agency. And some of our clients are even getting up to 100 meetings a month. And we do have a full team. We do have a head of strategy. We got a team of GTM engineers. We got project managers, strategists, campaign managers, the same team that we deploy on every single client account. And we typically guarantee our client 25 to 30 meetings a month or so, or we keep working until we get there. We're also building this YouTube channel now, which is why I'm genuinely so excited. The last video I gave you like the build order, what you should do when you build like a cold email system from scratch. So in this video, I just want to give you the lens for fixing what's broken, the offer, the positioning, the copywriting, the targeting, the infrastructure. So 2 different tools for 2 different jobs, and honestly, just watching these 2 videos is gonna help you a ton, right? And this is the exact same order that helped our agency getting from literally $0 to $1 million a year, right? Because when we launched the first cold email campaign, like I told you, it didn't work, right? And this is the exact order. When we take a look back at it, this is what we fixed. We fixed the offer first, and then how to position ourselves in a very saturated market, and then the copy, the targeting, and then infrastructure is the last priority. But yeah, that is my full story. I know I kind of went over the tangent a little bit, but from debugging codes at company like Apple to literally building a 7-figure cold email agency from scratch, using the same system on our own business that we now run for hundreds of customers. They are tech companies. And I'm telling you this not to flex numbers, but because I think the path matters. So we didn't get good at cold email by running it for clients, right? We got good at it by having literally no other choice. And I think that's actually the right way to earn the right to teach something. If you're building some things and you're trying to figure out how to get your first clients or how to scale your outbound, I think you're gonna find a lot of values in what I'm going to keep putting out on this channel. So make sure you subscribe. And the next video goes a lot deeper on this offer and positioning question specifically, because that's genuinely where most founders have problems with. And of course, if you want our team to build and run the system for you, link is in the description. We guarantee the results. Eyes on the stars, always rooting for you.